This is the PLP podcast by Isabel DeVille, and today's episode is called A Fight to Remember. Have you ever lost a loved one? Well, if you were in the First World War and you had a brother, father, sister, mother, or cousin fighting at the front, you could receive a telegram and your whole life could be changed. That's what happened to Ellen P. Grant on September 2nd, 1918, when she found out her son, Charles Donald Grant, had been wounded at the front and fallen ill. Shortly after, he had died. Charles Donald Grant was only 38 years old when he died. He, along with 1 million other soldiers who either wounded or died during the Battle of the Somme. And as many people look back on it, they believe that the battle wasn't worth the devastation. Especially for Canadians, who joined with Britain, fighting for land against the Germans, who in the end actually gained 10 kilometers. With 3 million soldiers going to the front, it was dangerous and sadly fatal. For Charles Donald Grant, it truly was. Charles was born in Paris, Ontario on May 1st, 1880. His father being Dr. James Grant and his mother, Ellen P. Grant. He attended the University of Alberta and graduated in 1907, thus becoming an eligible member of the first convocation of the University of Alberta, where there were traditions that were followed, such as ceremonies, academic dress, conferring of degrees, and more. This led him to becoming a partner in the law firm Parker, Grant, Freeman, and Abbott, where he was a lawyer. Grant then went overseas with the 5th University Company, which reinforced the Princess Patricia's Light Infantry in 1916. Princess Pat's Light Infantry was a unique regiment that was created by businessmen to go overseas. At the young age of 35, though, Charles enlisted in the Canadian Infantry of the Eastern Ontario Regiment. This was also known, or formerly known as the Battalion. Battling in the Second Battle of the Somme in 1916, where more than 3 million men fought in this battle, and 1 million men were wounded or killed. Within those numbers at the Somme that day, he was one of the men that was wounded and sent back home. After a long convalescence, though, he was able to rejoin his unit. He joined them in the early part of 1917. Shortly after, on June 8, 1917, he was wounded for the second time, but this time was able to return to his unit. Not long after this injury, sadly, Charles endured several other injuries. On September 2nd, he died from his wounds. In a newspaper article published in the Toronto Star on September 5th, 1918, there was an article about Charles and how he died at the front. Miss Grant received 2 telegrams yesterday. The first stating that he'd been wounded, and the second that he was dangerously ill as a result of the wounds. Just imagine having to go through that and finding out that your son died. During the war, over 18 million died, and 23 million wounded. It was a horrific war, ranking it among one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Though the war was devastating and so many lives were lost, it made Canada into its own nation. Before the war, it was joined with Great Britain, but after, it was its own independent country. World War I truly made Canada the Canada we know today. And a lot of that was due to these soldiers, such as Charles Donald Grant, who was able to put his life forward and to give up his family life in order to serve his country, Canada. I would like to thank Charles Donald Grant's family, as well as the websites that helped me get information, such as Veterans of Canada and Canadian War Projects, along with the other resources which will be listed in the description below.